It's the downside of StreamYard, isn't it?
I know. Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday afternoon. It is the final conversation of This Is Burnout, kind of last stretch. I'll be back with you in about an hour for a bit of reflection. But for my very, very last guest, I am here with Taz Thornton. Hey, Taz.
Hey, Kelly, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for being here.
No worries. All good.
Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. For those of you that are watching, again, please remember to share any videos, any comments, any of your own stories with the hashtag This Is Burnout. We want to raise as much awareness as we possibly can this week and hopefully over the next few weeks so that we can look to banish burnout. Before we get into, I know it's like it's only a small job, right? Just banish burnout. It's just easy done. I wish it was easy done. But before we kind of get into burnout story, Taz, just give us a bit of an intro about you. Who is Taz? What do you do?
Oh, well, we've only got 45 minutes, haven't we?
I know.
Okay, let's nutshell this as best we can. Personal empowerment, business visibility coach, speaker trainer, international speaker, best-selling author, and all-round pink-haired crazy bird. There you go.
There we go. And you're my second pink-haired crazy bird of the week.
I noticed.
Yeah. I spoke to Melanie Costa, although I did pull out the pink for her. You've got, I don't know if you know what this is, like an ochre. I have got bits of pink, I think.
Yeah, and there's a bit of pink in the painting behind you, I think.
Yeah, I got a bit of pink in there.
Yeah.
All good. So yeah, there's lots there. And I think potentially, again, we've only got 45 minutes, so we'll kind of see how we get on. But I think probably as the story unfolds, all of those things that you just described, or at least some of them as we go through today, may become a bit more, a bit more apparent and a bit more kind of obvious, maybe as to why they are your, chosen career, chosen things, help ways to help others, all of that really good stuff. So if we kind of kick off, so let's start with kind of when did you experience burnout?
It's interesting because when you and I first started working together, I hadn't connected the dots with the first time I experienced burnout. And it was only really a few months back. In fact, it was on TEDx Day that I realised that was when that started. And if I go way back to when I first set out into my career as a fledgling journalist, and I started at 16, I did the kind of going in for work experience and them saying, we're really impressed, we want to open a job for you, quit all your exams and come and do this. So I did that. But I progressed very quickly. So I went in there at 16, and by the time I was 20, I was news editor, which was ridiculously young. But like you, I've always been a goal setter and smashed every one that I've set. I've switched to intentions now, but that's another story for another day. And I remember that I was working all hours God sends. Journalism back then is not journalism today. And it would be getting in at work at stupid o'clock in the morning, staying until the job was done, going and covering meetings late at night. If you hadn't got a lead for the page, you'd stay until you got one. It was, 13, 14, 15 hour days, stupid. But at the time I was thriving, or at least I thought I was.
Yeah.
That job actually provided a beautiful mask because it hid from everyone that was going through really hideous domestic abuse at home. So I was going through that. I was rattling with antidepressants. I didn't know how to explain to anyone what I was going through. So I just became workhorse. And I remember walking into the office one lunch hour. We had a side door down the back, and I remember walking in, reaching for my desk and just collapsing, just boom, gone. And at the time it was you're tired, you're stressed, you're overworked, your asthma's going out of control, and all of those things were true. But I think looking back, that was the beginning of burnout. And I think that moving forwards from there, my story took quite a curve in that I eventually got out of that relationship, but not until after I'd tried to take my own life. And I'd tried to do suicide by accident. Those of you who've followed me for a while will know the story that I didn't want to leave an obvious trail for my family. So I thought my best way out was to accidentally die, which culminated in a car accident where I broke my back in 3 places. And again, joining those dots, we know all of the things that burnout does. I'm pretty sure that would have all led into that situation.
Yeah.
And years later, when I still hadn't properly dealt with all of that, and I went into what we then called breakdown, and I know they're two different things, but I genuinely believe that mine dovetailed beautifully. I think that all contributed. And then when I still hadn't sorted it out, and I kept being the workhorse in corporate land, and I had chest infection after chest infection after chest infection, antidepressants again, I worked myself so hard that I damaged my lungs. One of my lungs now only works at a third of capacity. And I'm 99.9 recurring % sure that can all be traced back to not dealing properly with that early burnout and just take a week off. Top up enough to go back into it. But you never properly sort it out. And then with the emotional toll of having been through the abuse in that relationship, and then the death of my dad and everything that unfolded there, I never properly sorted that out. I never properly got the support. I had, thank God, the most amazing wife in the world, but I wasn't seeking any professional support. And because I was so good at plastering that mask on and getting into robot mode and being the one that sorted out everybody else's shit, nobody stopped to think. In fact, I don't think anyone actually realised how much I was struggling other than Asha. So, burnout, good fun.
Yeah. And again, for anybody that has been watching all of the videos this week, I think we're definitely seeing this recurring theme, right? There are challenges, issues, things that are going on outside of work. We go full pelt into work, right? Because again, that feels like the bit that we can control, right? We can get control. We can get the promotions. We can get the job done. We can tick the boxes. We can feel like we've accomplished something. We can feel that we are, achieving or overachieving and continue to tick those boxes off. And everyone around us, great job, Taz. This is brilliant. Well done, you. Here's another promotion. Here's another pay rise. Here's more work to do. And that mask just becomes almost like thicker and thicker and thicker.
It becomes suffocating, doesn't it? Until in my case, it started to crack, and then there was no hiding it. And I think one of the biggest reasons I leapt from corporate was, yes, because I had this soul yearning to do more and I knew I had a bigger mission, but also because I knew if I stayed there, other people would start to see the cracks. And, for corporate goal-led girls, as you and I both were, it's one thing struggling and trying to deal with it yourself. It's another thing having other people looking from the outside in and go, oh, she's not as strong as we thought. She's failing. She can't cope. And that, in that mindset back then, whoa, no way.
And it is like, I can't remember who it was that I had this conversation with earlier this week, but it is like at the time being caught out or labelled as a failure seems like the worst thing in the world. And actually, when we look at it, and some of the other decisions that we are making and some of the other things that we are doing, or whether it's conscious or unconscious, and push it, actually that's the bit that's causing us the harm and doing us the damage. But
they're all skewed,
somewhere in our head, somewhere in our head, it's like failing would be the worst option. You absolutely at no cost can you fail. And that's why
even the way we address failure, even the way we see failure, we don't stop to think that, but that's a learning. We're not failing at something. We're learning how to do something better. We're learning how to succeed. And yet that failure word is filled and surrounded by so much stigma, isn't it? That it's no wonder people today are still falling into that same trap.
Absolutely. And we do see the cycle. And again, I know for both of us, I think once you have been through, and it's interesting for you to say, actually, it wasn't until the kind of TEDx that you then started to connect some of the dots as we kind of go further back, because I think that just really highlights the learning for all of this. Again, some people throughout this week, as we've been having conversations, have been like, oh, that was my epiphany moment. Or I spoke to Denise Bray yesterday. She was like, it wasn't until I watched some of the Monday videos that I realised it was years before then.
I'd always started to happen. I'd always known that I'd been through burnouts, and I would have said more than one. But I hadn't connected the dots before in terms of thinking, well, hold on, that was where it started. And it was because I didn't deal with it that actually it was still there, biting me in the backside for years and years and years. And that then flowed into, it's the little stream that flows into the river that becomes the ocean, that then becomes the tsunami that engulfs you. So,
and I'm amazed at just how many of us have also been talking about the fact that it was like first time round wasn't enough. Some people that I've been talking through didn't even stop at 2. It was like wait until number 3, and then really kind of make the change with it. So in terms of where you got to, so you had well, I suppose let's kind of talk about that period. So you had made the decision to leave corporate at the same time of a number of other things happening for you, hadn't you? So just kind of talk us through some of that.
So in 2006, I'd already started to realise that the company, as far as corporate organisations back in those days were, it was okay. It was good. There was a too small a framework to be able to progress people as I would have liked to have been able to, but by and large, supportive organisation. But it wasn't fitting me anymore. You know, I think one of the other areas that I talk about a lot is people talking about midlife crisis and laughing about the kind of Shirley Valentine thing. And I don't think it is a midlife crisis. I think we get to a point where we have this realization, and sometimes it will be burnout or breakdown that lead to that. But I think sometimes we just have this realization that we're doing everything on paper that should fill us up, but we're empty here. Great for the ego, but crushing for the soul. And I'd reached that point. It's like, I can do this job. I should enjoy this job. Why am I not happy? You know, I've got the bonus checks. I've got the top line Audi sitting on the drive. I'm having lovely holidays. Why am I not happy? So that had already started to chip away, but I didn't have the courage, because even though I'd seen my family members running their own businesses, I still had implanted in my head that you start at the bottom and you work your way up, and then one day you retire. And I still had that so embedded that at no point did I have the confidence or believe that, well, I could just do this on my own. Of course, no. Look at my wage slip. How can I possibly replicate that on my own? Crazy. Surpass that now, you know. But back then, it took a massive jolt. So in 2006, there were a series of things that happened all at around the same time. So my uncle lost his fight against cancer. A few weeks after that, something strange happened with my dad. When my uncle died, my dad went from having this look that as though he thought he'd always survive everything. He thought he was immortal. Suddenly, you could see that he was aware of his own mortality. My dad ended up in hospital, and only a matter of weeks after we'd lost my uncle, my dad was discharged. We thought everything was fine, but then he came home and died that night. So that happened. I'm an only child. Or at least the only child from mum and dad's relationship. So I was the only actively involved offspring, dealing with everything, trying to hold mum together, trying to deal with everything you deal with when a parent dies. A big chunk of family debt came to light that we hadn't known about, which meant that my financial future, as I thought it was going to be, was literally ripped out overnight. My wife, Asha, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Then she was made redundant. And all of this, including the funeral, was in an 8-week period, all of this happening. Plus dealing with do I come out now? Because everyone knew. I mean, Ash and I will have been together for 25 years in April, but with our family, there was this, you can't let anybody know, you know, very, very loving, but small town mentality. If anybody ever knows that you are, you know, your career will be over, everything will finish. You can't let anybody know. You know, we'd be going to a family engagement and somebody would come and sit out on the drive and ask if we could invent boyfriends for the night. But the line had always been, I don't care who knows when your dad dies. So here I am as well with all this going on, thinking I need to support, but I really need to not be hiding my biggest supporter right now. So all that, and in the scheme of things, that's a small thing, but the pressure of saying, well, do I do that now? Do I stop hiding now? Do all of that piling in all at once? And it was just too much. And I remember only a matter of days after my dad died, I was due to be in a head office meeting in Paris. And goal setting mentality, this is too much for me. I'll go to that meeting because it will give me a break away from this and I can just clear my head a bit.
Yeah.
I remember going to that meeting. I remember being told by my peers, don't mention the fact that your dad's just died because it might dampen the spirits in the meeting, or words to that effect. And I remember conversations going on around me as if I was not there. Do you think Taz will be back at work by the time we have this meeting or this meeting? Hello, I'm in the back of the car with you. All of that going on. And then that was another piece hitting, because while I was away, that was the one night someone broke into my parents', or the outbuildings of my parents' home in the garden, and stole things like my dad's mobility scooters. So hello guilt, I've now got all of this, and now the one night I go away to effectively escape, it was a big meeting, I needed to be there, but still the one night that there's another hit from my family. And I think it all just piled in, one on top of the other. And I remember talking years later and saying, well, one of those things alone would have been big for someone to deal with.
Yeah.
Let alone they only give you what you can cope with, right?
Yeah, allegedly.
And I remember sitting under my mum's dining room table and crying and rocking and trying to hide. And I always cite that as a low point, because what sane-minded person would try and hide as an adult under a dining room table? You know? And I can absolutely understand why. But I think it was at that point that I recognised I needed to do something.
Yeah.
I'd already been doing lots and lots of spiritual work for years and years, and personal development work. I'd trained in NLP, I'd done a bit of coaching. I'd spent 10 years learning from shamans and medicine people, traditional soul doctoring.
Yeah.
Not the take something and throw up and get hallucinations, not that kind of thing. Proper mindset, mind, body, soul connection stuff. And so we hatched a plan. I remember Asher saying to me one night, Taz, it doesn't matter if we lose everything and end up in a caravan. It doesn't matter. What's more important is you being here. And of course, that thought for Career Girl, what? No, I can't do that. And I tested the water. I came home one night and said, I've done it. She said, what? I said, I've done it. I've told them I'm leaving. And I hadn't, but I did that to check the reaction, and it was fine. And then in the end, I went into work. I completely redrew the company organogram, slid it across the table to the other director, who looked at it and said, you don't appear to be on this, Taz. And that's the first time. That was the only time I broke at work then. And that was it. That was how I escaped, how I rebuilt, how I had the realization that the one thing that filled me up was actually helping, supporting, advising other people, trying to find reason in it all, having this deep belief that everything I have been through, I could take experience and learning from and use that to support other people, that perhaps I'd hit that metaphorical brick wall so that other people didn't need to. And that, coupled with the management training I'd done, including everything from, cohesion through to conflict management, plus the NLP, plus the coaching, plus the soul doctoring, plus things like Reiki and, oh goodness, all kinds of different modalities I trained in because I wanted to. Firewalking, extreme empowerment. By the time I left, I'd got this robust body of skills that I could use to go and help others. I didn't go straight into that. When I first came out, I worked with Asha to rebuild and remold her business into a full service PR and digital media and marketing agency. And then we got to the point where the plan was that when I built enough of my own client base up to go full time, I'd step away from that. And that happened about 5 years earlier than we thought it would. And then as it happened, Ash went through a similar thing, realised that wasn't filling her up either, and she did something completely different as well. So there wasn't one thing.
No, and I think, again, that is a common thing when it comes to this, right? We get asked, can we pinpoint one thing? But I do, it is kind of the life stuff with the work stuff. Work seems to be, again, as we've been saying, like the mask, the safe zone.
Yeah.
And yet actually when that is then either in a toxic environment, or we're not getting the support, or it's just too much or too stressful, or something happens, it's like this, the space that we almost want to escape life from, in terms of work, that then becomes too overwhelming, and we kind of go down a different path with it. But again, thank you very, 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 very much for sharing. And again, I know lots of people will be able to relate to that.
Do you think, just to go off as a slight tangent, what you just said about wanting to pause, a really important point that keeps coming up for me again and again is I can't help but wonder if this is why so many people try to take their lives, or do, because what they really want is a pause. They just need to hit pause for a while, but nobody explains to us how we can do this. And when we're in that state, we go into this funnel, and the only thing that looks like a possibility at the other end of the funnel is not existing anymore.
Yeah, well, I've said to you, haven't I? And I think, you know, it was Christmas Eve for me, January 2015. Like, I just didn't want to be here. I've been put on some meds that were not the right place for me. I absolutely say to this day, had I not have done the training that I had done around the neuroscience stuff, some of the psychotherapy stuff, and understood enough about the brain stuff to say I knew what I needed. But yeah, what I needed in that moment was to not feel, not even so much feel. What I needed in that moment was to not have to be dealing with everything that I had in my head.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop my head up. I didn't want to end my life, but I needed to end what was the noise in my head.
Exactly.
And
I don't want to die. I just need to find an off switch.
And of course, the brain then goes to, well, this is what we'll do then.
Yeah.
Right. We just stop it all. That's where we're going.
Which is why it comes through with such scary clarity, and so many people think, well, this is the real. I've thought that more than once. You know, there were a couple of attempts where I got interrupted, but you know, we need to talk about that far more.
Yeah,
that we need a vacation, not burnout.
And I genuinely think if I hadn't done the training, I genuinely do not think I'd be here.
Yeah,
because I knew in that instance I needed to talk, because talking was getting me from the part of my brain that was saying, right, these are the only options that you've got, to the point of, okay, right, we have all of these options available. You just do one thing today, and that's going to make it all better. And that was a thing that I started. That was a thing that I started to do, and that was. I genuinely think that's why I'm here.
I think that's such an important conversation to have, particularly for the kind of wired goal setters, because we want a solution.
It is because we just want to keep going. And again, you know, like, you don't want to be a failure. You don't want to be a fraud. You don't want to be less than perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
What
we
is
want
that
to
anyway?
keep striving and pushing and doing this. Well, I'd gone into London yesterday, and so after we kind of done this day yesterday, I went into London on the train. Had a fabulous dinner with some fabulous people. Got to the train station, train's cancelled, it's freezing cold. By the time I get on the next train, it's even later. Like, I'm clock watching, but I knew I needed to stay awake, and so I did. I'm not usually on my phone after 8 o'clock, as lots of people will know, but I kind of got to the point of just scrolling. And what came up on 3 different platforms that I was looking at, and I think the third time I was like, okay, I get it. But perfectionism, again, has come up a lot in all of these conversations throughout this week. And it was the same. I mean, we can probably say, right, social media algorithms. But for me, it was like, it's a sign. But it was the same video of Brené Brown talking about perfectionism. And the fact that actually perfectionism isn't what we think it is. It's our way of really hiding shame and guilt and not feeling like we're enough, and going through all of that. And again, I think as part of the wrap up that I may do next week about this week, that perfectionism has been so prevalent in all of the conversations this week. There's definitely something there that I think we need to look at and understand a bit more, because that has definitely been part of every single conversation this week.
Absolutely. And then that leads into imposter syndrome. And you know, I have a real issue with imposter syndrome and the way that we're conditioned to handle it. We're looking at it all wrong.
Yeah. So there'll be something there next week about the kind of perfectionism, I think, and how that is causing so many of us to be pushing ourselves to burnout. You know, and that really is what we are, pushing ourselves to the point of burnout, and we don't need to be.
And I think that, to use a very, very broad brush term, our profession, i.e. coaching, we are guilty of causing so much of the problem there, because there are so many who still push the hustle, grind, 24/7, 6-figure, 7-figure, blah, blah. And we believe we're failing if we're not hitting that point.
Well, it's surrounding it, isn't it? You know, again, every time, you know, if I look on social media, if there is somebody selling coach, like the repeated ad campaign stuff that people are going for, it really is high performance, high achieving, 6 figures, 7 figures. You know, free templates to grow your email list overnight. You know, the best way to you know, £10,000 in 10 days and all of that sort of stuff. And you know, again, a lot of my clients are still very much in the corporate space, and some of those are just starting to transition out.
Yeah.
But actually, and with a lot of, certainly the people that I work with now, a lot of what they come to me for is the confidence, the self-development, the self-understanding, the self-awareness, getting really clear on who they are, their core values, their core goals, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But I do know when I first left, or even whilst I was still in corporate and taking on my first exec coaching clients, a lot of the people that were coming to it was all about doing more and working harder.
Yeah.
And now it really is, you know, not, I don't even want to say slowing down. I mean, there is some of that in there, but it is like, it is doing less to move forward more, right?
Yes.
Using time more effectively.
Slow down to speed up.
Slowing down, yeah, absolutely. Looking inward, understanding what it is that you want, instead of, as you kind of said at the beginning, this almost like kind of chasing the success, right? Because we get told that climbing the ladder and having the house and having the brand new Audi on the driveway, right? That's what we should all be thriving for. That's success. And definitely my coaching clients in corporate, and as I said, those are that are kind of transitioning out, they're looking for something very different. They want to feel something very different, but we don't know how to get it because we've never been told.
And it's interesting that you and I are picking people up at different parts of that journey. So if I had 50p for every one of my clients, because I end up coaching a lot of coaches, for everyone who transitioned out because they realised everything you've just been saying, but then see the ad, buy in, spend their last bit of money, their redundancy or whatever on the course that promises they'll have $4,000 a month within the first 6 months was one I heard recently, and we'll teach you how to market. We'll teach
in the
you
first 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, $4,000 a month within the first 6 months. Totally. And then they come to me with nothing left, saying, "Well, I've just done all this, and clearly coaching doesn't work. It's because it's too saturated, or I'm doing something wrong." No, it's because you've been sold bullshit.
Yeah. I tell you, I know, and again, I know we're kind of away from a tangent on this, but again, I think this is an important conversation to be having, because a lot of people that are at the point of burnout and recognise I cannot stay in corporate, while some of them are moving into different organisations, actually a lot of them are exiting to do their own thing. So again, I think actually the tangent that we're going off on is an important one for definitely an important one for now. But I think where you've just said that, so January 2014, like I said, I'd been coaching a few people whilst I was still in corporate in my own time. But I remember it was probably, I think I started the business January 2014. I'd got my first consultancy clients by the end of Jan, beginning of Feb. My first coaching clients, I think, had come sort of around March or April. But again, I think I'd been building some of those relationships whilst I was already in corporate. And then my first kind of big, actually local to me, coaching clients from, you know, big organizations and whatever had kind of approached. It was like, oh, like I've got my first proper inquiry, right, as a business owner. But I do remember reading, and I know you've read it as well, the Prosperous Coach, Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler.
Yeah.
And I can remember reading that in the early days. And it basically is, right, just coach. If you want to be a coach, just coach. And I can remember getting really frustrated at that time, but you don't tell me where to find people or how to market. So basically it's like, don't coach unsolicited, but coach as many people as you can and spend the time doing the coaching. And it's like, but where do you find the people to coach them, right? And I can remember getting really, really annoyed by it. But I have read that a few times since, or twice since, over the last 9 years.
Yeah.
And every time I read it, I'm like, right, now I get it, right? Because you're in it. So I think if people are selling you $4,000 in 6 months, or $4,000 a month within your first 6 months.
$4,000 a month within the first 6 months. It's no. But and again, the first mechanism is old school MLM. Go through your contacts book and ask everybody to hire you. Hello, Auntie Blossom. Will you?
Yeah. Can I coach you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we see lots of that. And again, I know you see more of it. I get more frustrated with the ads that I keep seeing. But yeah, we'll kind of, It
was a tangent, but I think that's an important tangent, because I bet a lot of people who are watching this are going to be in that. I'm burning out. I need to transition. Maybe I want to become a coach or consultant. So that I think this, Yes, it was a tough thing, but it was
and again, I think, you know, some of the conversations we've had this week and previously, but I think what we definitely, the big learning is, and I'll ask you in a second to kind of talk about what you were doing for you, because I think you'd spoken there about then all of the stuff that you started to do to help others. So I want to come back in a moment to kind of what you were doing for you.
Yeah.
But I think really understand, you know, if you are at that place where you are looking at that transition, take the time. Again, I think it was Denise that I was talking to yesterday who said I could have taken the time in between her 2 corporate jobs, between burnout and going into her next one. She could have taken the time and had that breathing space, and she didn't take it and then regretted it. And I think all of us that have been through it have said, I did not allow myself enough time in between. And if you are leaving corporate to set up on your own, starting Michelle Yeoman and I spoke about this like first thing 10 o'clock Monday morning as part of this week. It is not easy being a business owner. You do not just walk straight out of corporate into a ready-made business where clients are falling at your feet because of what it is that you've been doing. And again, you know, Taz does much more on this around, you know, kind of branding and, you know, telling your own story and all of that kind of stuff. But if you are thinking that burnout and leaving corporate to then start your own business is the easy option, it can be the better option as opposed to going back into another corporate environment where you might be feeling what you're feeling. But it's not easy, particularly if you have not given yourself that break in between, because then you've got the uncertainty of where is my next amount of money coming from? Like, you've lost the salary, you've lost the benefits, you've lost the bonuses, you've lost that consistency. And unless you've got some of that financial cushion behind you, very quickly you will be at a point of really kind of desperately searching for clients. And again, you know, Taz and I are probably both in testament to this. At the times where cash flow has been a bit difficult, being desperate in terms of looking for clients really comes across in your marketing. And I think that's the point, that it can be even more difficult to find the clients that you want to be working with. So I think just kind of pay attention to that. Would you add anything to that, Taz, before we come back to you?
Absolutely. I think what sometimes happens is, I bet you've probably been there as well. I know I have, that in the early days we hit that, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to pay my mortgage or my rent, depending on what's going on for you. I don't know what's going, and you go to that point of desperation where something happens with your energy, where your energy gets so big and desperate. Sorry guys, I'm going to go a little bit woo. I don't think it is woo. Some of you may. Tough.
If you've seen a conversation with Taz before, she always goes woo.
Absolutely. You become I long for the day where people don't even say it's woo and we just accept the shit we don't understand and
it's
works.
It's just part of what we do. Yeah,
baby.
Yeah.
But something happens. We get to that point and it's almost like we become some battery or transmitter, and suddenly, usually almost the exact amount we need drops in out of the sky from nowhere. Mm-hmm. But the first couple of times that happens, what that does is condition us to go, oh, right, so I need to get right to that desperate stage before the money comes in. No, what we need to do is go, okay, what was actually happening? What was happening right then is I got really, really focused. My energy came up, my levels of necessity raised, and I found a way to join the dots. And I don't care if you believe the universe worked with you or not. Ultimately, you got really focused and shit happened. Yeah. So if instead of waiting for desperation, we learn to raise our levels of necessity through choice and learn to get really, really focused. This is why I talk about specifics so much. Who do you want to work with specifically, by name? What's the organization? What's the transformation? What are you going to do for them? The more we get specific and turn up our energy, the more things happen. But you cannot allow that to flow into the warped hustle grind mentality. Nothing wrong with hustling, nothing wrong with grinding, but not 24/7. There are going to be peaks in your career where you are going to have to really put your foot to the metal, but then you need to build in downtime, or you will crash again and you will keep burning out. And you don't leave a burnout situation to burn out without the safety of a regular wage coming in from somebody else.
Yeah. And again, I think on that, excuse me, my tea. But I think on that point, so lots of people have been kind of saying to me this week, right, this week has been really full on. Some of the conversations have gone perhaps a little bit deeper than we imagined they would do in the space of 45 minutes. But it has been constant. And then all of the messages that I've been getting behind the scenes from people, and you know, I'm very grateful. I've had lots and lots of people like, are you okay? You know, how are you coping? And what are you doing for your energy levels? And you need to ensure that you do that. Having been through, I know what my limits are. I'm not going to say sometimes I still don't push them too much, because I absolutely do. And I am still a high performing, overachieving, recovering perfectionist, right? That's my kind of self-definition. But last week I ensured that I was raising my energy as much as I possibly could do to allow me to get through this week. I've been very careful in terms of spacing out the interviews that I'm doing to ensure that they are there. One big learning is that I have squeezed 2 other things into this week because I wanted to do them. And actually, I probably should have said no to both of them. But I didn't. And, you know, I'll do them. I mean, I'm still going to be high energy and all that stuff as they happen. But I have been doing something every single day this week to ensure that my energy stays high. I have got nothing planned for this weekend because it's about complete rest and recovery. And my next week is planned to allow me to kind of come down from this week and then look at what else do I need to do with it? Where do I want to take it? And I think a lot of us, we don't do that. And again, in corporate, we probably didn't. But we have this one, like this is kind of one big week, right? It's a lot, particularly on screen. It's a lot to be having these conversations back to back over a number of days and still be dealing with the messages and all of the other stuff that kind of goes with it. But what a lot of us don't allow is that energy raising the week before and that energy resting the week after. And again, as you're saying, it's like, well, so I know this week's going to be really busy, and I know next week's going to be really busy, and actually I can't even take a day off until 6 weeks' time. Something is likely to have happened to you before that 6 weeks is over. And even if you're not getting to the point of burnout, but you're repeating that, you are constantly pushing yourself to the point of exhaustion. You are depleting your energy day in and day out. And you need to be ensuring that you are doing the things for you to make all of that stuff happen.
But of course, where people go is, well, I can't take time off because I haven't got enough to pay my bills, so I need to earn more. But when you go into that loop, something Kelly mentioned it earlier, something happens with your marketing and with the energy you put out there, and people can feel that desperation. And you might, for anyone watching this, you might want to give some money or some support to someone that you know is desperate. But would you want to actually go and trust people with your business investments if they seemed desperate? No. So you have to be aware. And normally what happens is, yes, you might hit those peak times where you just need to get a lump in. But if you carry on doing that, people are just going to, the vibes you give out will actually repel people. Am I going a bit too woo again? Sorry, people.
No, but again, I get it. And I know lots of other people will get it, because there is something. And again, you know, whether it's on social media, whether it's in your email marketing, whether it's videos, whether it's conversations, there is, you know, do you want to build relationships to find out what's happening, to build connections, to build credibility and trust and all of those things, or are you constantly just sell?
Well, look, here's a visual that will explain it beautifully. Way back in the days when Ash and I were running Turquoise Tiger, we were asked to help with an exhibition and to give people some training on how to man their stands, essentially. And we did all the training, and then on the day somebody was sick and their mum came in to man the stand for them. And I kid you not, she was selling vases or some kind of pottery. And every time somebody approached her stand, she stood up and literally did this. I don't think she was even aware of doing it. But can you imagine how would you feel if you walked into a shop or up to a stand and they went?
I mean, that's a Del Boy, isn't it? Right? That's only Fools and Horses. That's Del Boy coming up to you.
That's what we're doing energetically. When we go into that mode, we might not be physically doing this, but that's what people will be feeling. Whoa! Guess how much she sold that weekend?
But when you walk into the mechanics, right, they're like, "Oh, it's the inhale, isn't it?"
Which somebody once tried to teach me as a sales technique. I kid you not.
Did they really?
Yep. An NLP. I've never used
it. NLP tried to teach it to you.
That's what you need to do. Oh, let me speak to head office and see what we can do for you on that. No.
Double glazing salesman.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a very serious topic and a very, very serious conversation.
Right, you can tell.
So there's hopefully there's some business advice. And as I said, we didn't know this was where the conversation was going to go, but I do think it has been helped because, again, certainly lots of the people that you've seen this week, and I'm going to reiterate this, a lot of the people that have spoken this week have come from, I think probably just with the exception of Denise, actually, I think a lot of us have left corporate or left whatever roles we were in to set up on our own as a result of burnout. A lot of the messages that I'm getting behind the scenes are from people that are in corporate and are either transitioning out or planning an exit and do not feel they are ready to be able to talk about their story. But I think also, I don't know if Victoria and I said this live in kind of this morning's session, but actually also I think what we're seeing is it takes a long time for us to be able to really start to talk about this burnout stuff. I certainly wouldn't have been able to talk about it straight after coming out. I'm sure Taz wouldn't have been able to do the same either. So it can take a long time because actually what we're processing it ourselves. So you do not, I'm going to make this really clear, you do not have to give up your job and a career that you absolutely love to go it alone as a result of burnout. You absolutely do not need to do that. And I know lots of people full stop, including some of the people that I have helped to allow them to stay in corporate because this is the stuff that they're doing. And I've either helped support them in the roles that they're in or help them move into different roles or different organizations or whatever. Not everybody is made to be a self-employed or business owner, the same as not everybody is made for corporate life and all of that sort of stuff. So please do not feel that, excuse me, I'm probably going for it now. Please do not feel that you need to be jumping out to do it. That's not the message of this week at all. But hopefully this conversation with Taz, if you have made that leap or are thinking of making that leap, and again, quite difficult, right? Because again, what we've been talking about a lot this week is you kind of lose all of that logic the closer and closer that you get to burnout. But hopefully once you get to that pivot point and take the time for yourself, then you can start to make some of those more logical, rational decisions.
If
and
you
do
just
want to
hold,
go self-employed or do you want to go corporate?
If you hold just this one line, this helped me a lot. I forget where I first heard it, but it helped me a lot. Never make a permanent decision from a temporary situation. And if you just remember that, just hold on to that.
Yeah, brilliant.
Don't let that give you an excuse to not do anything, but just take your time, let the dust settle. Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you. So I just want to very quickly, before we finish, I did say I'd come back to what were you doing for yourself? Because again, as you were talking this, you've got all of this stuff that's happening. You're helping your mum, you're helping Asha, you're doing all of this stuff. What did you do for yourself at that point to allow you to start to move to where you are now?
At that point, probably not a lot. Now, the good thing is that I had quite a strong spiritual tribe. I was still working and training with Northern Drum and I was assisting Chris Lutterchow. Look him up if you haven't yet. He's an amazing guy. And so I at least had that on tap. And when I felt that I needed some spiritual healing, he was there. And I was able to just say, Chris, I really need some help. Could you please do a piece of work for me? And he went off and did a piece of work and fed back what he was feeding into or reading in terms of my energy, my soul, my spirit. So I did some of that, but I didn't do nowhere near enough. Nowhere near, because again, I was just focused on just getting everything done. And I don't think I know when we've got that level of stuff hitting all at the same time, we do go into robot mode, and that's a valid coping mechanism, but it doesn't serve us long term. So I had a lot of fallout from then. I didn't even have the mental or emotional capacity back then to think I need to do something for me. The only thought was I need to get through. And that's a good thought. The only way out is through and all of that. That's a good thought. But when we go through those periods, when we get to the other side, we do then, what happens when we've been through those difficult times, and it is often after something like a funeral. So the funeral is that pivotal moment they're all focused on. And it's not until after the funeral, when the space comes that when we have the grieving and the emotion and the outpouring and the feelings start to hit, and it's not always a funeral, it's not always a death, but please be aware of that a lot of you will be tempted to just keep going because you're afraid of what you might fill the gap with. But I'm getting close to plugging your book here, Kelly. Mind the gap.
Oh, thanks. Mind the gap. Yes, it's a very good one.
Mind the gap.
My head went to, there's a really lovely tarot, it's not a tarot card, but there's a really lovely card in Rebecca Campbell's, one of Rebecca Campbell's packs, which I think is the Work Your Light pack, that is called Filling the Void. Yeah. And that's all about the specs. And my head went there, not even to plugging my own book.
Yeah, you see? She must be getting near burnout. She's missing cues. But that very quickly, that's another important point. So in the medicine work that I do, the void is the place of everything and nothing. So absolute chaos and absolute nothingness. So the void, unless we are equipped to handle it, isn't always a good place to fall. But a nice comfy chair with somebody bringing you biscuits and a cup of tea is a good place to fall. Strive for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Final thought. What would you say to anybody that is at, near or close to burnout? If there was one message that you had for them, what would you say?
We need to really remember and take note of this. I genuinely do not believe that we are here to go to a job we don't enjoy every day, in a car we love but we don't get time to enjoy because it's just a commute. We are here for more than that. We are here for more than working until we're so old that we can enjoy a bit of money just before we start whittling down our legs. We are not here just to work our asses off and pay bills. We have to be here for more than that, because what's the point? So if you can, regardless of where you are on the kind of left brain, right brain scale, Kelly would say, who are you at your core? What's your core message? I would say, what is your soul mission? If you really sit in that place of contemplation, do you believe you are here to do more than the thing you are doing that is driving you into the ground? And if you do, it doesn't matter if you don't know what it is. It doesn't matter if you don't know what your why is. Nobody was worrying about their why before Simon Sinek wrote that book. It's an excellent book, but it's also left a lot of people with screwed heads, If you don't know what your big why is, just find one thing that fills you up and do that. Maybe that's the first step. Just start planning in lots of little things just for you. And then gradually you will start to get some more sense. You will start to realize, actually, what fills me up is doing this. What I think I might be here for is this, and work towards that. But you're not here just to knacker yourself up and pay bills. You're just not.
Yeah. Thank you. Taz, if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where's best to reach you?
TazThornton.com, Taz@TazThornton.com, or just type Taz Thornton in Google and you'll find me pretty much everywhere.
You just see lots of pink hair, really.
Yeah.
Although I tell you what I did, and I hadn't made the connection, Morgan Gleaves was on Tuesday talking about cartoons, and he's like, yeah, Taz's cartoon. I was like, I had not made the connection.
Yeah, Taz's Awesome Tales cartoon strip. Morgan, if you're watching this, you owe me some more of those, mate.
I was like, I hadn't realised that.
I spoke to Morgan only. Look at that.
There we go. TazThornton.com if you want to find out more about Taz. Or just Google, or pretty much any social media.
Find me on social, I'll be there.
Like any social media.
Not Snapchat. I'm there, but I don't look at it. No.
But she's still there.
Yeah. I just want to see your message. But anywhere else.
Oh, Taz, thank you. Thank you. Let's pop you down here. I want to say, so a huge thank you to Taz, and that's the final conversation for this week. I think my heart is full, and I think, as I said on Tuesday, I'm probably going to get really emotional again at the moment. So I don't think I'm going to do my reflections at 3. I think I'm going to stop and come back to you tomorrow with those. But I think, again, whenever I kind of come up with this crazy stuff, right? So I'm like, let's just do a few video interviews and let's see how we go. And then I start to look through my diary, and it's like, oh, okay, can't do it then, because again, I'm conscious I don't want to fill my diary too much. And I then get to the point where it's like January 2023, and the date really, really glared out at me that it was 10 years, literally this month, this week, that or this week 10 years ago, that the physical signs of burnout just absolutely took hold of me. And whilst I think again, I've been resisting having some of these burnout conversations. I resisted for years writing the book that Taz was so lovingly plugging for me, which was Mind the Gap. But I resisted all of that because I just felt like I wanted to close that chapter and move it on. But I think actually the big thing for me is that we have to keep having these conversations. And every time I see burnout statistics that are increasing again and again and again, with this knowing that we can stop it, that we can prevent it, that we can do everything that we need to do, I just get very emotional, very angry, and I just want to fix it. And I want to shake all of us and every single one of you that is sending me messages this week, however difficult a time you are in at the moment. The repeated message has been, I never thought it would happen to me. And I know Michelle's popping some comments in there as well this week. I never thought it would happen to me. Michelle never thought it would happen to her. Taz never thought it would happen to her. Like, we don't start our careers thinking, you know, like the pinnacle of my career is going to be reaching burnout. Not one of us has reaching burnout on our career goals. And yet, hopefully, what we've been able to highlight this week is that it can impact any single one of us. Like, burnout is not discriminating against anything. Burnout is not discriminating against any person, any background, any career, any age, any gender. It is not discriminating, and every single one of us can take the steps that we need to take to ensure that we are preventing it for ourselves. And as you've heard from every single guest there, and as Taz has just summarised, we do not have to be working in places that are making us miserable. We do not have to be working in roles that are making us miserable. And we do not have to be pushing and hustling in order to live happy, healthy lives. So I want as many of you as possible, please, to share either videos, your own stories, some of the graphics from the This Is Burnout page. I want the hashtag This Is Burnout to be everywhere by the end of this month. I'm going to come back to you tomorrow with some kind of final summaries and some final lessons. I'm going to keep flooding inboxes and social media. LinkedIn has, I'm going to say, really pissed me off this week, because even my content manager knew that we were doing this campaign, and every single view on every single live this week has been down. LinkedIn live has really down this week. YouTube and Facebook have loved all of this video and all of these conversations and all of these comments. LinkedIn, not so much. And so I really need all of you to be sharing, liking, commenting, hashtag This Is Burnout, get the stories across, get the messages across, and do everything that we can to stop it. I'm going to stop ranting there so that I can go in and say another thank you to Taz. I want to say thank you to every single person that has been a guest this week. Again, I'll do a big wrap up and thank you all personally and individually tomorrow. But I want to say thank you for getting involved. Thank you for talking. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing your posts. Thank you for everything that you have done. Taz, one final thank you from me. Let's bring you back just to say one final thank you. Thank you very much for being part of it. And take care, everybody. I will be back with you at some point tomorrow. And whilst we've got Michelle Hartley in the room, I'm also talking at Michelle Hartley's Geeks tomorrow, which I'm talking all neuroscience, 1 o'clock tomorrow. So Michelle, if you want to stick the link in the comments, let's try and get some more people in there for you. I want to say thank you to all of you. Taz, thank you to everybody. And I will be back with you all again at some point tomorrow.